Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. So this video is going to be problems with Bollywood as a whole, and this is the part 2. So without any further ado, let's just get started with the video. So the second part is going to be the over importance of love. प्यार किया तो डरना क्या जब प्यार किया तो डरना क्या. This song's translation can be given as a why fear if you've loved. This perfectly encapsulates the idea of love that Bollywood often puts forth. So why is this concept wrong? Let's discuss. I think before talking about how Bollywood distorts our concept of love, we have to talk about what love is. And I'm not going to waste your time with some philosophical shit. Let's talk about love from a scientific perspective. According to this Harvard website, there are 3 stages of love: lust, attraction, and attachment. Lust is something that you feel completely to gratify your sexual desires. Attraction is when you have those butterflies in your stomach feeling, that nervousness you feel when you see your crush and the racing heartbeat. You know what I mean. All of the aforementioned feelings are created by 3 specific hormones in our body: dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. These hormones also lead to losing sleep and hunger. Yes, that really happens. Attachment, however, is different. It is the predominant factor in long-term relationships. It is a feeling that is developed after years of being with that person. So next time you think about love, it should be more like Monica and Chandler, where they help each other grow, rather than the tumultuous relationship of Ross and Rachel. But the unfortunate thing is, Bollywood very much idolizes the toxic relationship as opposed to the healthy relationships. How? Often in Bollywood movies, we can hear the heterosexual couple talking about how they can't live without each other. There's this song named Jiye To Jiye Kaise Bin Aapke, which means, how can I live without you? Let's take an example of the movie Rocky. While the male actor is approaching his love interest in this movie, the male protagonist tells the female protagonist that he can die for her, and she says, then go die. And he just goes towards the highway to kill himself. So he's just basically waiting for a car to hit him. Obviously, he's stopped by her, and after a while, she confesses her love for him, but that's not the point. The point is, he's ready to kill himself for her. Another movie is Devdas. I can't really translate this in English, where Shah Rukh Khan, the male protagonist of the movie, literally kills himself through alcohol after breaking up with Paro. Well, not exactly breaking up, but they separate. That's all I can say. In Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, which translates to I already gave you my heart, my love or darling, the female protagonist, Aishwarya, tries to kill herself after her boyfriend leaves her house because the entire family knows about her and her boyfriend's relationship, and her boyfriend is asked to leave the girl's house. Another example is Dhadkan, where the male lead promises the female lead that he'll die for her before she gets hurt. In Ranjana, I don't know what that means in English, the male protagonist goes to die despite knowing that the female protagonist wants his death, and he goes to die just because he loves her. In Ashik Banaya Aapne, which means you made me a lover, the female lead decides to set herself on fire because her boyfriend cheated on her. If your boyfriend cheats on you, you break up with that asshole and leave him. Don't set yourself on fire. Again, I'm not saying that showing these things is wrong. Which light you show them in matters. And in all the aforementioned movies, it is portrayed as this heroic deed done by the actors. In Bollywood movies, killing oneself for love is glorified. If it was real life, whatever these actors did in the movies will be perceived as something very childish. You know, like a tantrum. I couldn't get what I wanted, so I'm doing something extremely dramatic to get people's attention. I'm not talking about self-harm as a mental illness. I'm talking about self-harm for love. In Bollywood, self-harm for the sake of love is glorified. Why is glorifying it a problem? In South Asia, the population is around 1.9 billion. I'm sure that the majority of the population in South Asia watch Bollywood movies. Think of the impact that these movies have on the younger generation in these countries. Because they are exposed to the glorification of killing oneself for the sake of love, they will think if the actors in the movie are willing to sacrifice their own life for the sake of romantic love, then they will perceive love as the only important thing in their lives. It is also a problem because if someone can't live without the other person, that person should seriously find some hobbies. Seriously, learn to play the guitar or learn some programming language. This is the age of the internet. You can't have your significant other as your hobby. In real life, people who don't have hobbies apart from their significant other are very possessive. I can't believe Bollywood is glorifying not having any hobbies. Take a shot every time I say hobbies. Not being able to survive without your significant other is dependence, not love. Love is when you were good surviving on your own, but having your significant other being around makes it even better. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a very personal story. When I was back in school, I think I was in the 5th, 6th grade, there was this trend going on of girls cutting their hands with blade and cutting them into their crush's name. I'm not blaming completely like Bollywood movies did this, but they have some part of the blame. They should get some part of the blame. So how did Bollywood distort our idea of love? Well, Bollywood specifically focuses on the attraction part of love, writing songs about how you can't sleep, eat, or drink. Writing songs about how only love is required to survive. Let me give you some examples. मुझे नींद न आए मुझे चैन न आए कोई जाए जरा ढूंढ के लाए न जाने कहाँ दिल खो गया. This song that I just played means I can't sleep, I'm not at peace, can please someone fetch my heart because it's lost. This song epitomizes how Bollywood shows love. Another example is in the movie Aap Mujhe Achhe Lagne Lage, which means I've started to like you, where the male and the female lead are talking about how they can neither sleep nor eat or drink. The male lead talks about how he sees his love interest everywhere. I came to know about this movie from the channel Only They See. He's hilarious. Make sure you check him out. There is this song named Kaise Jiya Jaye Tum Bin Jiya Jaye Kaise. This means, how can I survive without you? In the movie I Hate Love Stories, there's a song named Bin Tere, which means without you. And the song starts with, lost and lonely, 'cause you're the only one that knows me and I can't be without you. In Chennai Express, leads fall in love with each other in a matter of, a month. And I'm being very liberal here. Deepika is the female protagonist. Deepika's infatuation starts after Shah Rukh, the male protagonist, carried her to the top of a temple by carrying her in his arms. A very impressive feat, I agree, but not something to fall in love with. You don't fall in love in a matter of a month. Another example is the movie Dhadkan, the same movie that I talked about before, and its translation is Heartbeat, where Sunil Shetty, the male lead, talks about how even if he dies, his heart will still be beating in the female lead's heart. I can keep going, but I have limited time. All these feelings of not being able to eat or sleep does happen when you're attracted to someone. But it's not love, it's infatuation. But the thing is, Bollywood just replaces infatuation with love in their songs and their dialogues. After this, the people watching these movies walk away completely messing up the definition of love. What would happen if these things happened in real life? Well, like I said, no hobbies, possessive and creepy behavior, and self-harming for their quote-unquote love. The next problem that I have is the fact that the falling in love of two characters is shown through a song. The mere fact that falling in love of two characters is reduced to a song is extremely lazy. Don't sing, don't tell, just show how they fell in love with each other. Isn't this supposed to be the first rule of writing and making movies? Showing is done so well in the series Friends, where Monica and Chandler organically develop their relationship. Their love is so strong that they survive through so much, like Monica and Chandler's infertility, a long distance relationship, Chandler's communication problems, Chandler's commitment problems, and many, many other things. Unfortunately, in Bollywood, more screen time is put into stupid songs as opposed to developing your characters. Here, the writers just make the male lead fall in love with the female lead in just one sight, saving tons of screen time and squeezing 2 more songs within that time period. The examples are Titli in Chennai Express, Sadka Kiya and Bahara in I Hate Love Stories, and many, many other songs. I can't list them all. Songs don't play in real life when you fall in love like it is shown in the movie, Main Hoon Na. It is more like a gradual process of realizing that you want to be with this person for the rest of your life. It doesn't happen in an instant or with a song. I would suggest you to watch the video What is Wrong with Bollywood Songs by the channel Cinema Beyond Entertainment to learn about what things are wrong with Bollywood songs. I absolutely love his channel. Also, please watch the video How Bollywood Ruined Love by the same channel. This video talks about how Bollywood fucked up our idea of love. The next trope that Bollywood has is the concept of love at first sight, which I have renamed as erection at first sight. I know this is a little bit vulgar, but this is the truth. I think this should be said. Love is impossible to happen at first sight. Only attraction and lust happen at first sight. In the movie Sultan, the male lead falls in love with the female lead in first sight. In Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, sometimes happiness, sometimes sadness, I guess, Shah Rukh Khan falls in love with Kajol at first sight. Amir Khan falls for Kajol in Fana at first sight. In Josh, the second lead of the movie, Chandrachur Singh, falls for Aishwarya Rai, the female lead, in first sight. In the 1990 movie Ashiki, the male lead falls in love with the female lead at first sight. In Rehna Hai Tere Dil Mein, the same thing happens. These movies are held at a very high standard in Bollywood because they are made by highly respected production companies in Bollywood. The same happens in most Bollywood serials or Bollywood soap operas, whatever you like to call it. So why is it problematic? The concept of love at first sight reduces the concept of love into one single thing: sexual attraction. And this concept of love at first sight also leads to the concept of the one or soulmate. For the sake of argument, let's say that you just know that this is the one. Probably your instinct telling you that this is quote-unquote the one. I'm going to let Monica from Friends help me debunk this stupid concept.
Phoebe thinks that you and Don are soulmates. And I don't believe in that kind of stuff, but then you two totally get along. So look, I won't stand in your way if you want to run off with Don and live in a house of cheese.
Taylor, you don't believe in soulmates?
No, but I'm sure Tomatoes does.
I don't believe in soulmates either.
You don't?
No. I don't think that you and I were destined to end up together. I think that we fell in love and we work hard at our relationship. Some days we work really hard.
So you don't want to live with Don in a cheese house?
No, I've had second thoughts about that.
I couldn't agree more, Monica. I couldn't agree more. With the idea of soulmate, we can also talk about how a guy pursues a girl despite everything. Even if the girl is denying him, even if the girl slaps him, even if whatever happens, even if he dies, his corpse will run to the girl. He keeps pursuing her without telling her he likes her. Like in the movie Aashik Banaya Aapne. He has to keep pursuing her because he's her soulmate, apparently. And he can do everything to be with her. Like in the movie Aashik Banaya Aapne, the second lead of the movie keeps pursuing the female lead and plots against his crush's boyfriend so that his crush and her boyfriend break up. The idea of the one also leads to idea of fate and how some couple is fated to be together. This is done especially in Bollywood serials. I think the sooner we realize the world is as chaotic as can be and there is no fate to guide you or anyone else, the better we come to peace with the struggles that we go through in life. I again suggest you to listen to what Monica said.
I don't think that you and I were destined to end up together. I think that we fell in love and we work hard at our relationship.
I also suggest you read the book What If by Randall Munroe, which hilariously points out the flaws in the concept of soulmate. While answering the what if question, what if everyone actually had only one soulmate, a random person somewhere in the world? This book will give you a serious reality check if you believe in the concept of soulmates. Another trope that is very commonly used in Bollywood is the bad boy turns to good boy because he falls in love trope. This happens in a couple of movies like Jeet, Ek Villain, Kabir Singh, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, Aashik Banaya Aapne, and many others. In this trope, it is shown to be the girl's responsibility to save a guy. In the movie Ek Villain, which means a villain, the actress has saving, quote unquote, saving the male protagonist in her bucket list. The same happens in the movie Hero, where the male protagonist is a goon and kidnaps the female protagonist, and they both fall in love, and the male protagonist changes for the female protagonist. The same happens in Ladies vs. Ricky Bell, where the male protagonist, who was a con man before he decides to change his ways just because he fell in love. In Kabir Singh, he spirals deep into alcoholism and drug addiction because his love interest is forced to get married to someone else. When in the end Kabir Singh reunites with his love interest, his addiction is completely put aside, which insinuates that he decided to leave his addiction behind just because he reunited with his love interest. In Fana, the same thing happens where the male protagonist is a terrorist and he falls in love with one girl. But this movie steers away from the good girl cures bad boy trope, which should be given credit. In the movie Aashik Banaya Aapne, there is the bad boy who's a playboy who the female lead falls for. The problem with this trope is the perpetuation of the idea that quote unquote bad boys can be treated with love. Let me tell you, they can't. Abusive people need psychological help. And let me reiterate that love is not the medicine. It can't be. Let's take an example of Hardin from the After series. He went through a horrible trauma, which is understandable, but his trauma is reduced to something for his girlfriend to fix, when in reality, he should go to therapy and have his trauma addressed and taken care of. The same should happen in Bollywood, but because of the stigma surrounding mental illness, addressing this trauma with a psychologist is something that can never happen. So, they resort to making the character fall in love with a female character who becomes his doctor and quote-unquote fixes him. And when it comes to a playboy finally settling for some girl, this is just some way to make the girl who's watching the movie or who's reading the book feel special. And the funny thing is, there is nothing special about that girl. She's just beautiful because she always has her hair and makeup done. It is not questionable if you show a genuine fuckboy changing for a girl who's genuinely special. Maybe she decides to be with him despite all the struggles that he's going through in his life. Maybe she's fiercely loyal to the people that she loves. I would love to watch that movie. But if it's a story on how a fuckboy falls for a girl because she's beautiful, this is just shallow story writing. How can someone's beauty make you change your ways? In real life, fuckboys keep fucking until they realize the error in their ways, and abusive guys keep abusing until they get some therapy. Since we have just talked about abusive behavior, let's come to how stalking and all the other creepy behaviors are also taken to be signs of love in Bollywood. This is done especially with guys. What I mean is that guys usually do the stalking and whatnot, and this is considered as something adorable for guys. This can also be named as persistence in pursuing a girl. In Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, Shah Rukh Khan is extremely creepy with his behavior with Kajol by not giving her space in the train, and he's constantly flirting with other girls. The movie with Ajay Devgan, Phool Aur Kaante, where he confesses his love for the female protagonist by writing "I love you Pooja," which is the heroine's name, on her walls like a creepy stalker. In Rehna Hai Tere Dil Mein, the male protagonist falls in love with Tia Mirza at quote-unquote one site and learns that she's to get engaged to a childhood friend whom she has not seen since her fiancé lived in the US for so long. Due to the fact that the male lead is so head over heels in love with her, he lies to her about him being the guy that she's to be married with the expectation that she'll fall for him in the end and she'll forgive him because she's in love with him. Obviously, she falls in love with the guy and they get together in the end. In Ranchana, the guy threatens to kill himself when the girl rejects him. He's slapped multiple times by the girl, but he still pursues her, which is a fucked up idea of consent. If she said no, leave. In the movie Dil Se, Shah Rukh Khan keeps pursuing the female despite her saying that she's not interested. In the movie Josh, the second male lead falls for the female lead and stalks her to the bus stand. The issue with this is equating creepy behavior with love. While in movies this is considered to be adorable for guys, in real life any woman or man would completely freak out when they go through this situation. A Bollywood hero doing this in movies is adorable, but someone doing this in real life will end with that guy being in jail or with that girl being in jail. A stranger stalking you is very terrifying. This article on The Guardian, the author talks about how an Indian man in Australia was acquitted. He was acquitted, so he was like set free, he was free of all charges of stalking because his defense argued that Bollywood perpetuates the idea that stalking is acceptable while approaching women. This incident itself shows how men are influenced by Bollywood and their idea of approaching a girl is so fucked up because of Bollywood. The next problem with Bollywood is how sex is completely pushed aside while talking about romantic relationships. The things that I have to watch for you guys. The movies from the 2000s and the 1990s were huge culprits of this. However, the movies in the 2010s tried to stay away from this trope, which I think is worth giving credit. For example, in DDLJ, in Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, Shah Rukh Khan talks about the dignity, which is the virginity of Indian girls, after joking that he had sex with the female protagonist when the female protagonist was drunk. The girl obviously freaks out. But I don't really think that because she was raped, but more because she lost her virginity. But I could be wrong on this. I made this assumption because in the 90s, a girl's virginity was and actually still is everything in South Asian countries. In the movies in the 90s, this was taken as a very big deal, but now it's really not in most Bollywood movies. Not just this movie, the same happens in the movie Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, with the mom asking if her daughter's boyfriend had touched, quote unquote, touched her daughter in some places. Obviously talking about her daughter's virginity. I didn't even know that a person's virginity could be touched until I watched a Bollywood movie. The same happens in the movie Main Prem Ki Diwani Hu, where the mother asks if something quote-unquote bad has happened between her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. Bad obviously means sex. Let's talk about the harm that it does by not talking about sex at all while talking about love. Sex is also an expression of love. However, the Bollywood movies in the 90s and 2000s reserved sex solely for marriage. In Bollywood movies, the peak of any romantic relationships is marriage. So we are to assume that after marriage, couples don't have any problems at all. A couple isn't supposed to experiment with sex at all if they're not married. Everything after marriage. Everything after marriage. What further exacerbates this problem is the fact that we don't have proper sex education in South Asian countries. Due to the lack of sex education, people are just having kids non-stop. This is why we have a population of 1.9 billion people in South Asia. A healthy understanding of sex is extremely important when it comes to romantic relationships. You don't need to get married to have sex. As long as there are two consenting adults, sex is no one's problem except for the people engaging in sex. Let me tell you a ridiculous story that I had with my grandma. So one day I came back home really late, and I went out with my friends, and obviously I came out late, which is already a big deal. And I told her I went out because I really wanted to go out. I was really cooped up inside the house and everything like that. And you know what she told me? She told me I can go wherever I want after I get married. So we have come to the concept of marriage. Let's talk about how marriage is the happily ever after in Bollywood movies. There have been tons of movies where the movie ends with the guy and the girl getting married. In Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, Kajol gets married to Shah Rukh Khan in the end, and we are supposed to assume that there are no problems. They don't have sexual problems, no problems with Shah Rukh Khan's constant flirting with girls, nothing. Kajol gets married to Shah Rukh Khan in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and we are expected to believe that in the future, if Kajol and Shah Rukh, they decide to have kids, that Kajol will treat her kids and her stepchild the same way. In Vivah, which means marriage in English, the same thing happens. In Kabir Singh, he also gets married to his girlfriend in the end. Don't even get me started on Bollywood serials. All these movies insinuate that the ultimate act of love is marriage. After marriage, everything is perfect. No problems at all. This completely distorts our concept of love because they all overemphasize the importance of marriage rather than emphasizing the importance of knowing your significant other first in every way possible and making the right decision about marriage. But unfortunately, a lot of audience watching these kinds of movies actually believe that once they get married, everything will fall to place. But after a couple of years, they realize how compromise is extremely important, and they understand that they are stuck with the wrong person for the rest of their life. I was one of those people who assumed that marriage is the end game to every love story. But now that I'm an adult, I realize that there are couples with completely fucked up marriages. This is just a stupid but nonetheless very funny tangent. I've watched in Aashik Banaya Aapne, the guy confesses his love to the female lead and he asks for an answer. What answer? How do you answer I love you with a yes or no? Also, this movie has most of the stupid tropes that I talked about in this video. This trope is going to be a short one, but a very important one. I absolutely hate the fact that in Bollywood, 99.9% of all romantic couples are heterosexual. It's absolutely infuriating. Why don't you have some same-sex couple story in your movie? Oh yeah, I know why. The video or the clips that I just showed you was from a movie Fire. Fire was an Indo-Canadian movie featuring a lesbian relationship, and there were huge protests around India, protesting this movie's message. I know recently Shubh Mangal Savdhan also features a gay relationship, which is great. But this oversaturation of heterosexual couples in Bollywood movies really distort the definition of love that we have. In addition to this, there are very less movies where the girl pursues a guy. Girls don't fall for guys at all. This is another trope that Bollywood loves. The trope of predefined gender roles, where the guy has to approach a girl and not the other way around. Like in the video by Cinema Beyond Entertainment, the girl who likes a guy is relegated to the role of a villain, like the role of Priyanka Chopra in the movie Etraz. I'm not going to expand more on this. Cinema Beyond Entertainment has done a far better job of covering it. Okay, so this is where I have come to the very emotional part of the video. I grew up watching tons of Bollywood movies and obviously tons of Bollywood serials. They were mostly garbage. I mean, the movies were mostly garbage, but all Bollywood serials were garbage. I grew up thinking that marriage is the end goal of every relationship. I also ended up believing in the idea of soulmate and fate. But when I watched those movies and serials, I always saw the guys fall for gorgeous girls. Yeah, those actors had people to perfect their hair, makeup, and skin. But I was 11, 12 years of age, and I didn't really know that makeup could do that. So I grew up with terrible self-esteem. Seeing guys fall for gorgeous girls made me feel terrible because I wasn't one of those gorgeous girls. I spent most of my teenage life wanting to be beautiful. I had a lot of acne growing up, so my self-esteem was even worse because of that. I struggled with a terrible self-esteem for most of my teenage and adult life. I still do. My skin is a lot better now, and I must say my self-esteem is better than before. I'm not blaming Bollywood movies and serials did this, but they are to take some part of the blame. They had some part in my low self-esteem issues. But you can say, why did you not research, or how could you be so stupid as to not realize the flaws in those scripts? You should have known better is what I hear very often. I'm aware that there are highly independent thinking individuals in this world who could rip apart a movie and series from a very young age, but I was not one of them. There are people like me out there who can't do that, who couldn't do that at a very young age. Some people tend to think on their own, but some people need some push or a nudge. I'm one of those people who need the nudge. I'm sure there are people who need an entire explanation. There are various types of people, but most of them are trusting and gullible. I made this video for those kinds of people who need a push and who need an explanation for everything. What kind of love should we aspire to? I know I mentioned Monica and Chandler so many times, but oh man, I can't really tell you. I've watched Friends so many times, and I think every romantic relationship should be like Chandler and Monica's, where they help each other grow. Oh my god, the emotional turmoil that they both went through because both of them were not able to conceive kids. Chandler had problems with his sperm and Monica had a very hostile uterus. And they both went through it, and they went through the adoption process, and they stuck together for so long. I mean, this is just mind-blowing to me. That is the kind of relationship that I want to be in the future. I want to have fights with the person, but at the same time, I want to grow with that person. Saying this much, I would like to thank you all for listening to my, 33 years of rambling. Not 33 years, 33 minutes of rambling. I didn't expect it to be this long. Well, my script was 6.5 pages long. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. My next my next video on the same topic will be out, I guess, in a couple of days again. I'll try my best to, have it as soon as possible. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.